Every living organism is biologically wired to survive at all costs. For human infants, however, biological survival is complicated by extreme dependency. They lack the physical capacity to flee or forage, making their continued existence entirely dependent on the intervention of an adult. Psychologist John Bowlby proposed that the human propensity to form strong emotional bonds is a basic component of human nature, an evolutionary strategy specifically designed to aid in survival. From this clinical perspective, early childhood bonding is an objective, evolutionary requirement rather than a matter of sentiment. Because the infant cannot survive in isolation, the brain treats the formation of an emotional attachment as a life-or-death biological necessity. This diagram represents the core mechanism of attachment. The infant relies on this two-part system to absorb erratic signals of fear and return to a baseline state. Repeatedly, the brain stores these outcomes as logic pathways, forming the internal working model. This model acts as a lifelong algorithm, providing a set of rules that dictate a person's self-worth and their expectations for all future relationships. We can now map exactly how parents write this code and observe the specific points where the system architecture begins to break down. Our adult behaviors and relationships are the result of the specific internal working model programmed during the first years of life. To categorize these internal algorithms, clinicians look for observable strategies in a child's behavior. Mary Ainsworth developed a foundational protocol to test these models empirically. Known as the strange situation, this test observes how a child manages their stress during a 3-minute separation from their caregiver. This matrix identifies the baseline for a healthy system, secure attachment. This is the product of a caregiver providing a safe haven. In this quadrant, the child develops a predictable logic. An expressed need leads to a consistent response, reinforcing they are safe and lovable. Secure children typically grow into adults with high self-esteem, the ability to manage life transitions, and a capacity for long-term, trusting relationships. When the dyadic system is reliable, the brain can divert energy away from survival panic and toward confidence and learning. When a caregiver is unresponsive or erratic, the child must adapt, a process clinicians call organized maladaptation. The child develops a new, organized coping strategy designed to survive the environmental deficit. Avoidant attachment occurs when a caregiver is chronically depressed, absent, or physically unavailable. The child learns that showing a need leads to being ignored. Their survival strategy is to suppress feelings entirely to avoid further rejection. This creates an adult who prioritizes self-sufficiency, avoids intimacy, and struggles to share emotions with partners. Anxious ambivalent attachment develops when caregiver responses are unpredictable. The parent alternates between being attentive and distant. To secure attention, the child becomes hypervigilant, using demanding behavior to force a response, writing an algorithm requiring constant reassurance. As adults, these individuals often experience extreme anxiety, suspicion of strangers, and a persistent feeling that they are never truly loved. Though these behaviors are often destructive in adult life, they were logical, highly effective programs created by a child to survive a flawed early environment. A cataclysmic failure occurs when the caregiver is both the child's biological requirement for protection and their primary source of trauma or abuse. This presents the infant brain with an unsolvable paradox. The child must process two incompatible realities: the need for the parent to protect them and the reality that the parent is hurting them. Because no strategy, whether clinging or avoiding, can produce safety in this environment, no organized model can form. Clinicians describe this state as fear without solution. Instead of adapting, the internal working model shatters. This leads to a fragmented or dissociated brain state where information is compartmentalized rather than integrated. This breakdown manifests in adulthood as non-sequential behaviors, addiction, self-harm, and extreme thought distortion. Disorganized attachment represents the complete collapse of coping mechanisms, leaving the individual without a cohesive map for human connection. This timeline shows how these models project across a lifespan. A secure attachment maintains a high level of relational stability from childhood through adult life. The avoidant trajectory is flat and low volatility, but it remains isolated and disconnected from others. The ambivalent path is jagged, swinging between intense peaks of brief connection and the valleys of relational collapse. The disorganized trajectory is discontinuous, marked by severe breaks and a lack of any predictable pattern. Without intervention, adults often unconsciously replicate these models because a predictable environment, even an unhealthy one, feels safer to the brain than an unknown one. Humans do not naturally outgrow these attachment styles. The passage of time does not rewrite the base code of the internal working model. Attachment styles are survival algorithms, calibrated to the specific environment the infant encountered. Relational dysfunction in adulthood is the result of these biological survival mechanisms, rather than a lack of character or inherent flaw. When the brain recognizes the original thread is gone, it becomes possible to view these behaviors as outdated survival programs. Rebuilding the fragmented links of a disorganized or insecure model requires the presence of consistent, safe relationships to slowly rewire the brain's expectations. This clinical perspective provides a necessary paradigm shift in how society views behavioral issues. We must shift the clinical focus away from asking what is wrong with a person, and instead ask what survival strategy they were forced to adopt.